Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today we are discussing a legend, one of the first four Lange Söhne models launched by the Reborn Company in 1994. The Merite Tourbillon was by far the grandest of the initial collection and the scarcest. This watch was made in 200 copies. We'll get into the breakdown by metal in just a moment, but only 200 were constructed, a joint effort between the new Lange Söhne firm of Glashütte, Germany, and Renault Papi, later Audemars Piguet Renault Papi. All of that in a moment, but first, basic measurements. In yellow gold, 38.5 millimeters in diameter. The watch is only 10.6 millimeters thick, 46.8 millimeters from lug to lug, with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. This is a fantastic size. A man can wear this, a woman can wear it. You can see on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, no trouble whatsoever accommodating the watch. It's nowhere near the edges. The lugs aren't even close to overhanging. You can really see that in this down the barrel shot. Cuff shot reveals that it'll easily slide underneath. And the timepiece is wonderfully compact, really 13.5 centimeter circumference wrists could still wear this. The strap is high grade. It's a brand new Lange factory strap. As you can see, calfskin on the bottom, no crimping, no gouging. Medium brown, large, symmetrical, rectangular scale alligator leather, a very expensive cut of leather. Folded edge, monotone stitch, a little bit of bolstering to give it volume. This wonderful Lange pin buckle. I've shouted this out in the past. If you've seen my Lange videos, you can skip past the buckle explanation. But if you're new to these, you're going to want to see this. You can see how the bridge is elevated so that when I put the strap inside the buckle, it sits flush inside rather than stacking up, reducing the height when it's actually buckled down on your wrist. Now, there's also a little bar in here. If, like me, you have a tiny wrist, you're going to use the smallest hole or maybe even punch smaller holes. And a strap that is tightly drawn on a small wrist can sometimes get pinned on the pin. Therefore, there is this little retaining bar in here to make it easier to extricate the watch from a small wrist when it's tightly strapped. Characteristic Lange case design, with the exception of the arcade, all of the four original Lange models featured a very similar case design. Gunter Blumlein, a famed watch executive who was one of the principals in the re-established Lange, wanted a case that was distinctive, and so these lugs stepped out from the case band, became a signature across the board, and they're still with us today. Domed bezel, polished case back. You can see that the actual case back is somewhat inset to create the impression of a thinner watch on the wrist. The bezel has a little vertical lip and then a domed portion. Lugs, bezel, case back, all polished with satination across the middle for contrast, and a Lange Söhne branded crown, and a dial made of sterling silver. That's right, the dial is a solid block of silver that's been cut to look like this. It's then galvanized silver white with the Arabic numerals and the sub-registers, the brand, and the railroad track outboard all transferred. Now, this was also the beginning of the design that would come to be called the 1815 collection with the Arabic numerals. It wasn't called that back in 1994, but it would come to be known as such. Take a quick look, nicely balanced. You can split it down the center, and it has lateral symmetry. So we have a power reserve indicator over at 3 o'clock, and we have a constant seconds at 9, though in truth this is a 1-minute tourbillon, so you could use either one of them as your seconds hand. You can see each one is sunken, and then we have a cutout for the tourbillon, which is not symmetrical. You can see top to bottom different shapes there. The hands are all fired blue steel, and we have alpha style hands at center for the hours and minutes. You can see they're polished at their center with a polished cannon pinion. The tourbillon cage itself with the tri-spoke design and then the flourishes, the rounded flourishes on the edges of the spokes. This is a design drawn from historical Lange Söhne and more broadly East German high-grade pocket watch tourbillon from the late 19th century and early 20th century. And I know back in the 1920s, Alfred Helwig was still building tourbillon that looked like this. And so this is a nod to history in shape. And the finish, I must say, is better than anything you'll find historically. Although the Merite tourbillon is a very early Lange and thus more visibly imperfect, more visibly handmade than later Lange watches, it's still better than anything crafted founded in the pocket watch era. You can see we have this steel bridge for the tourbillon that's been faceted on each side, and each side has been black polished like a mirror. And you can see where the facets actually meet the shoulders for the screws at the center and also at the edge. We have these really sharp breaks between polished facets that are gorgeous to behold. Right on each side, each capstone to the tourbillon is a real brilliant cut diamond. So these are all synthetic rubies, but these are real diamonds as the caps on the tourbillon. The tourbillon is a 1-minute tourbillon, 3 hertz beat rate. You can see it features an overcoil hairspring, so it keeps very consistent time in any position. If you look carefully, you can see engine turning on the base plate below the tourbillon, black polish and beveling across the steel components of the tourbillon cage, and then all screws are black polished on their tops with chamfered slots and circumference front and back. And it's very loud, the way most tourbillon watches are. It's very chatty. Now, Renault Papi designed the fusee and chain tourbillon system for this watch, and they fabricated the parts. And this was the first ever wristwatch application of a fusee and chain constant force device with a tourbillon. So APRP, founded in the late 1980s by 2 former Audemars Piguet watchmakers, they didn't want to wait decades. They didn't want to wait for 20 years before they were allowed to touch a tourbillon or a minute repeater. So they created their own horlogerie manufacturer that created exactly that kind of watch. And so when Günter Blümlein and Walter Lange were looking for something that would set their brand apart, something that would be a no-holds-barred flagship, they went to Renault Papi, and Renault Papi provided this design. It's incredibly compact. You can see the chain. I'll wind it a little bit. You can see the chain in motion. Works just like a bicycle gear system to create mechanical advantage. So as the barrel winds down and loses mainspring torque, the fusee is pulled on a larger diameter. So as the barrel loses force, the chain climbs the fusee, which is a hyperboloid shape, and creates an effectively larger lever arm for more mechanical advantage. So for 36 hours, the escapement gets constant force, which allows constant balance amplitude, which allows for very precise timing. And Lange takes advantage of that by regulating the watch in 5 positions, which is the high horology and chronometer standard. That little chain has 636 parts. It's 1/4 millimeter wide. It's 15 centimeters long, and it has enough strength to vertically suspend 2 kilograms, which for those of us in the old colonies, that's almost 5 pounds. That's impressive for something that is 1/4 millimeter thick. Piece of lore in the watch industry, which may or may not be true, but it's a lovely tale, is that in order to maintain the spacing between the links before the pins were inserted, silk thread was threaded through, and then after the pins were pressed, it was burned out using a match to clear out the chain for final use in the watch. Now, Lange's contribution was to set some of the design standards, like the use of 3/4 bridges, golden chaton cups for pivot jewels, but then also take, assemble, and finish the parts from Renault Papi. So the parts would go to Germany. They would be hand finished, which you can see here is done to a high standard, albeit again a little bit more visibly handcrafted than later Lange. And after the finishing was done, Lange would use its now signature double assembly, once to make sure everything works, and then the second time to check all the parts for wear and tear, reassemble, lubricate, and regulate. That's what double assembly is at Lange. Taking a quick look, you can see that the bridges are made of German silver, something that Blümlein and Walter Lange specified, a nickel copper zinc alloy with the copper giving it its golden hue. We have glasuta stripes, we have skeletonization, so you can see the fusee and the barrel. As you wind, there's actually a planetary inside. So inside the fusee, there's a planetary. The idea being you continue to apply the correct amount of force to the escapement so it doesn't slow or stop the watch when you're winding it. That's the purpose of the planetary. Now, as you wind, the chain winds from the barrel to the fusee, and then when the watch runs, it unwinds from the fusee to the barrel, so it works backwards that way. You can see that the beveling is still to a very high grade. We have what was the beginning of the freehand engraving on the balance cocks, or the tourbillon cage cocks, engine turning, micro-engine turning perfectly spaced on the base plate, and there's satination on the wheels. You can also see that we have these golden chaton cups, a nod to the era of pocket watch manufacture in East Germany when jewels couldn't be pressed directly into a bridge or plate. There wasn't enough precision in the machinery, so precision golden cups would be made, the jewels pressed into those, and then those would be fitted into the bridges and plates using screws to hold them in place. And so you can see this watch has both black polished and fire blued screws. All this was in its day 30 40 meters water resistant, but I wouldn't test that theory today. Now you can see it says 150. This is a little bit confusing. There were approximately 150 made in gold, but that includes 106 pieces made in yellow gold, which you have right here, others in rose and white. There were platinum and I believe one steel example made. So they intended to make 150. The real number might have been 148 to 150, but that was the idea. It was 150 in gold, all three golds, of which 106 were the yellow gold watch you see right here. So this is a beautiful and evocative piece from the very earliest days of the modern, re-established Lange Söhne, which was one of the great manufacturers in East Germany, but collectivized under the communists, reborn via Walter Lange and Gunter Blumlein. And today it dates back to 1990, which was year one, and 1994 was year one for the model line. And back in 1994, this was the undisputed flagship. It is today one of the most collectible Lange watches and most collectible German watches ever made. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details. One more quick note, just in case I wasn't clear. You can see the power reserve indicator goes up to 36. That is the power reserve of the watch, and it has a stopwork system, so when it reaches a point where it can no longer keep good time, it will halt rather than flattering to deceive and keeping time while losing time. So you won't wind up keeping bad time due to the stopworks mechanism. So for 36 hours, constant force, constant amplitude, excellent timekeeping, but it will bring the watch to a halt promptly at the end of 36 hours. And again, that is just there to ensure the watch never runs outside of its 36-hour chronometric power reserve.